Geography, it covers half of the latitudinal line across the Arctic. Economy, energy and energy export in particular is enormously important to Russia. Jakob, he will know the details. And a very high percentage of energy is being produced in the Russian Arctic, and that share will most likely increase in the years to come. Also, the Arctic still has a very special place in Russian security thinking, in sharp contrast to the West. And finally, and very obviously, Russia is the only NATO member, non-NATO member of the 5 Arctic Ocean states. So now I am, seems like I'm starting to support Scott's argument, but I'm really not doing that. But what is clear is that any serious confrontation in the Arctic, if it ever happens, will involve Russia. So Russia is the key to this. Very briefly, we hear a lot about the hard Russian rhetoric, both verbal rhetoric, use of military means for demonstrative purposes and so forth and so on. We also hear a lot about huge, grand Russian schemes for naval development. A few comments to that. About these schemes for naval development, there is a huge gap between visions and possible realities. I see no prospect in the foreseeable future that anything like last year's talk about carrier groups and so forth and so on will ever be realized. I'm not going into these structural problems of the Russian military. You all know that, corruption and so forth and so on. Yeah, this is not exactly what I will emphasize here, but what is very important when observing Russia and Russia in the Arctic in particular is the contrast between the rhetoric and their actual policies. Russian behavior in the Arctic has been pragmatic. They have been following the rules of the game, and with the rules of the game, I primarily mean the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas. Actually, some of the media coverage of Russian steps, aggressive steps in the Arctic, are referring to steps Russia has been taking directly as a result of the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas. This one I would like to discuss, but I don't think I will. We could come back to it. It illustrates the picture in the north and in the Atlantic. I think something has happened here. No, that's okay. Yeah. So again. Russia has been following the rules of the game, most importantly in practice. They were the first to file their claim in 2001, and they will have to file a supplementary claim until the end of this year. Russia has been an active multilateralist in the Arctic. It participates actively in the Arctic Council and in the Barents Cooperation. So what we see here is this double picture of a self-assertive Russian rhetoric, but a high degree of compliance and pragmatism in practice. I'm curious whether you will support me about this, but we'll see. This is my last real slide. So what are then, after all, the hard security challenges in the Arctic? First, it seems highly unlikely that any of the Arctic Ocean states would risk large-scale interstate military conflict to press for their preferred solution to regional conflicts of interest, and Russia included, and Russia before all. This is because the likely material and political costs of this would by far outweigh any conceivable gains. And this is realism. This is not idealism. This is realism. This, however, does not rule out the possibility that localized episodes, and we had a few of them in the last years, may develop into armed clashes despite the original intentions of the parties involved. Neither does it rule out the possibility that one state actor in the region may consider the use of force, or of limited military force, based on a firm conviction that the other side will not escalate the conflict into major confrontation. And here there is the issue of existing local asymmetries of strength, which could increase the temptation for this option. These are the most important danger factors. But again, these are elements of relations between states which basically exist everywhere. It's nothing particular to the Arctic. There's no particular reason why we should focus more on these issues in the Arctic than elsewhere. Actually, there are many reasons why we should focus less on these issues in the Arctic than elsewhere. One of them is the long tradition of actually good cooperation in the Arctic. That more or less ends my presentation, with the exception of this final slide, which just would like to draw your attention to a webpage of a project called Geopolitics in the High North, which is led by my institute, the Norwegian Institute for Defense Studies, in cooperation with partners in Norway, US, Germany, and Russia. It's a research program on geopolitics, actors and interests in the Arctic. The website was set up some 1 year ago, so it's still quite new, but I think you could find some interesting information on it. So thank you for your attention.